Ellis, you with me?
Got you, Gary.
All right, brother. There you are. Ready to talk some football. As we always do before we look ahead, I kind of want to look back at last weekend. No need to spend a lot of time on Alabama Southern Miss, but I want to talk to you about that A&M Auburn game because I thought A&M at home would have a better showing. Just to be honest, I was impressed with Auburn and how they went out there with only 299 yards of a total offense, but controlled the game. They controlled it physically. They were able to run the ball enough, and again, Nix didn't put up huge numbers, but he made plays. And I just thought they really controlled the game on the road. I was impressed with Auburn's performance, and at the same time, disappointed with what I saw from A&M. What was your take on that game?
Well, A&M's played two really good defenses so far in Clemson and Auburn, and in neither one of those could they run the football. And although at the end of the game they had a lot of total yards and some passing and so forth, and the stats didn't look too bad, they just weren't very good on offense early in the game. And I think that's, of course, credit to Auburn's defense. But I do think that A&M has shown at quarterback and a couple other areas that they're really not where they thought they were going to be this year. And against the two quality teams they've played, they haven't really been competitive. They did close that game up toward the end, but I felt like Auburn was in control for the first three quarters, and mainly because of their defense and their running game. You hit it on the head with Nix. He's not completely ready to open up and do everything maybe an older quarterback would do, but he's really doing a good job of taking care of the football. And at critical times, he is making big plays. So they kind of know their formula, and I think they've played to it and have a couple of really big wins against Texas A&M and Oregon. Of course, they got a tough game against Mississippi State, but they're playing a little better than State right now. So I think it's a disappointing loss for Texas A&M. And it really says I don't think they're where they should be. And I just don't think the improvement they made last year at quarterback has continued to come along. They're struggling at that spot right now in big games.
Yeah, I'm with you. South Carolina went to Missouri, and, again, Missouri's got the loss to Wyoming. They can't take that off their schedule, but as we've discussed, some turnovers killed them there. They're a pretty good-looking football team right now, and Carolina, you lose by 20 on the road against a team that you think, at least in terms of the geography in the SEC, when you look at, if you're South Carolina, you're saying Missouri is a team that we ought to be competitive with. That was a tough loss for the Gamecocks, and I'll let you touch on that and then go ahead and look ahead to the fact that they host Kentucky in what probably is to have any chance for either one of these teams to have a good season is a must-win for both of them. But start with what you saw from Missouri and South Carolina, and then the pressure on South Carolina this week at home for Will Muschamp and them to beat Kentucky.
Well, we talked about them a little bit last week, but the thing I kept trying to emphasize is although their schedule they had played up until that time was not all that impressive, Missouri statistically was the best defense in the conference in many areas. And they just completely – I don't know what was wrong with Carolina. I was not able to view the game. I was traveling, listened to a lot of it on radio, and I've seen some replay. Ryan Hilinski had kind of a typical freshman day. He didn't look like himself the previous two starts, but he didn't get any help. And at halftime, you're sitting there with 3 yards of passing and 27 yards rushing and 1 first down. And I don't care whose defense you're playing against. It was just it really put too much on their defense, and their defense has been terrible all year. But they came in at halftime and had already played over 50 snaps on defense, and that's just the formula for disaster. And especially it was a pretty hot day out there, and they just melted in the second half. They're sitting there right now, dead last or next to last in 80% of the defensive categories, and I know it's been a disappointing surprise to them. But they're just not any better in that area. They're not getting takeaways. They're not good on third down. There's nothing they're doing on defense right now. The red zone's okay, but they're not playing well on defense. And they've got better depth. They've got better skill. And I think it's a puzzle. I know Will knows what he's doing. He can get it straightened out, but they don't have many games left. They've got a chance to get it straightened out. That was a really, really tough loss, because of the mathematics of the thing, but also because they didn't play well on offense, and that had not been the case the first 3 games.
Ellis Johnson with us on the Bud Light Hotline, and I see we got a caller. We'll get to the caller here in just a moment. I want to get in a couple more topics. In the next segment, we're going to get heavy into previews. But a lot of people seem surprised that Notre Dame played Georgia down to the wire. I'm not. I mean, I think Notre Dame's a good football team. I think Georgia's everything we think they are. They're physical. They can control the ball. But, sometimes when you play that way, you don't separate. And Notre Dame hung in there and actually had the ball there at the end of the game with a chance to go win the game. Now, Georgia's defense bowed up, as it more times than not will be able to do. But were you surprised that game came down to the fourth quarter?
I really was. And what I was most impressed about Notre Dame, they seemed a little more aggressive and a little bit faster on defense than I've seen them in recent years. Even when they looked a little undersized, they looked like they had great speed and effectiveness on defense. And they created turnover and had pretty good third down defense. Georgia was only 4 of 11, and Georgia had been really explosive on offense. And I thought, Notre Dame held them under 200 yards passing. So they were impressive. I didn't know much about them coming into the game, but that was the impression left with me when it was over. Georgia would probably beat them 10 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10 times. But they struggled with them because I think Notre Dame really had a little more speed on defense and more effectiveness than they expected. But they took care of business, and they got it done. It wasn't an extremely impressive overall offensive showing, but it was certainly solid. And Fromm was 20-26, which is very good. They just played really good. But I think you have to say Notre Dame going into Athens and playing that well and having a chance to win that ball game, I think it surprised a lot of people.
Lastly, for some reason, and don't ask me why, Ellis, and I'll see your reaction to the game, but I thought Tennessee would bow up under the circumstances against a rival, everybody counting them out and go into Gainesville and at least make it competitive, and they got the snot kicked out of them. And for Florida, it was a really good game for Tennessee. More questions. Did you feel like Tennessee could be competitive there, or did you expect Florida to manhandle them the way they did?
Well, I thought it would be a good game, a decent game. I do think Florida is still a lot better than Tennessee right now. And my background with Jeremy, I think they let Jeremy keep grinding on this thing until he gets it, because if they make another change, they're going to end up being behind another 4 years. But the thing that I was impressed with in the game is Trask, the quarterback, and they lost their quarterback. Talking about Florida, they lost their quarterback the week before, and the other kid Trask came in and finished well. But you never know if they got to take the whole game, if they're ready to put that on their back. But it was at home, and he got some good players around him, and they played well around him, and he played well. And I thought that was the biggest story of the game. The quarterback really looks like they haven't missed a beat, and I'm not so sure he's not going to give them a little more consistency at the position. So going down the road, I think Florida, looks a little better now in the big picture than they did before.
Yep.
Tennessee, on the other hand, they're still where they are. Kerry, they're not. The roster's not there yet. The kids are playing hard. They're fighting. I know he's not lost his locker room. He hasn't lost his players, and they'll win some games down the stretch. But you would hope they would perform better down there. I don't know if they could have beaten Florida if they played them 10 times that day. But you would hope that they're making better progress and looking a little bit better. They had a good win the week before. And offense played well, but they just they couldn't play with Florida that particular day. And I think the quarterback was the biggest story.
All right, we need to take a break with the coach. Tom's holding. We'll get to you, Tom, when we come back on the other side. We'll also get into Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Auburn with Ellis Johnson, former Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, South Carolina defensive coordinator, head coach at Southern Miss, coach at Clemson. He knows his football. We'll talk more with Coach Ellis Johnson on the Gary Harris Show right after this timeout. Well, let's go to Tom first, who's been waiting the longest. Mike, we'll get to you. Tom, you're on with the coach.
Morning, Gary. Morning, Coach. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, hang on, Tom. I'm having some issues this morning with the boys.
Well, you know what, Gary, now that you mention it, I was going to ask him something about the way Alabama's been playing with their tight ends, and I don't think he's got to watch Alabama a whole lot. I just thought about him saying he was traveling. I don't even know if it's fair to ask him.
Well, you can ask him if we can get him back up. I knocked him off somehow. Lines are lit up everywhere.
Hang on a minute. If he don't want to answer,
no, that's fine. We'll get you on here. It's been, and now he's probably on hold thinking.
Well, I'll just tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
last week we lined up in the pistol with Najee at the deep back. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And we called the play to the left side of the line. And lo and behold, if the hole was there, Najee had a good run going, it was going to be about a 30-yard run. And lo and behold, Barnstall over there on his side let the guy run free, didn't even touch him, didn't lay a hand on him. The guy makes the play and stops the running game. My question to coach is this. The tight end, our tight end play has been less than up to par.
Yeah, all right. I think Coach is back on. Coach, you back with us?
Yes, but Gary, I missed the first
Yeah, well,
part of that.
Tom's on the line, and he's pointing out something I think a lot of people have noticed, that Alabama with the tight ends, they moved an offensive lineman over there, Kendall Randolph, to help with the blocking. They have not been great at blocking, and Tom really wanting to know how that impacts the running game when your tight ends struggle to block.
Well, it depends upon what style of running game, and not having watched them real closely for the previous 4 games, I don't know how heavily they're depending on that. A lot of teams are running the football now, and some of them quite effectively, and they never have a tight end on the field. And when they do have what they call a H-back, which is a moving tight end in the backfield, some of them, hybrid tight ends. But if you're running an offense with a tight end in the running game on the line of scrimmage, and he's not very good, it's a tremendous handicap on your offense. First of all, you can't get the running game going, play actions and stuff off of it, are gone. And so I have not noticed that they're not getting production at tight end, and they had all those moves. But it's a very critical position in certain styles of offense.
Tom,
hey, Coach, let me ask you this. So would you say the coaching staff moving one of the more athletic offensive linemen out there to that position, they're just saying this tight end can't block, so we got to find somebody that can?
Well, it may be, and I've seen that happen before. Where you had to get a person who could really be a good blocker and put him there. Now, what it does, it allows the defense to not worry about him as a pass receiver, especially in the vertical game. So you lose something by doing that. But if you can't run the football and you need that third blocker, you got to find somebody that can do it.
Well, our tight end last week, he was out there doing Mexican bullfight. He olayed about 3 defensive ends. And, I mean, if he had put his hand in front of them, they'd had to slow up just enough. The running back would have gained 30 yards.
All right, Tom, we got to move on. Thank you, my friend.
All right, Gary, thank you.
All right, Coach, let's get another call on. Mike's been waiting for a long time, too. Mike, I don't know why I keep knocking Coach off. All I'm doing is going to the next phone call and hitting air. Y'all going to have to help me in there. I'm not hitting drop. Mike, hold on. We keep knocking Coach off the air here somehow. When there's multiple calls on, evidently, if I go take somebody else on the air, it knocks off the coach. Because I promise you, I'm not dropping him. Mike, you with us?
Yes.
All right, hold on. We're trying to get Coach back up. We're having one issue after another here. So y'all are going to have to, we have more than one person on the line. Y'all are going to have to punch them through. Because this is not working. You got Coach back up? Coach, you back with us?
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know I was doing that bad. You had to cut me off.
No, you got so many calls. Evidently, we're shutting down the switchboard. All right, I'm going to hit air here for Mike, and I hope I don't lose you. Let's try this. Okay. Mike, you with us?
I'm here.
All right. Go ahead. You're on with Coach.
Coach, I tried to get in last week. What I had to say is more relevant to the Southern Miss discussion. But if you remember the old Coaches Club that we used to come visit us once a year?
The ones I remember, the Red Elephant clubs that we had in the districts where we came out in the spring and spent time.
Well, there was only 20 of us, and you used to come out North River. And
oh yeah,
you were
Red Elephant.
You were at the first meeting after Coach Stallings was hired. You were one of the coaches that came to the first meeting, and you told us, of course, you coached with Curly, and you had said, you kind of said, fellas, he said, this is, let me tell you something to look for. He said, Coach Stallings, he's a pro. He's been in pros. They have preseason. they play themselves into shape. He said, I promise you, Curly's down there working their tails off, and they're going to be in a hell of a lot better condition than we are. And as the game played out, that was kind of a foreboding statement you made. and I guess it's okay that we're sworn to secrecy. We couldn't ever say anything that y'all had told us, but I guess after 30 years, it's okay. That
was more of a comment. That was more of a compliment to Curly and
Curly, I know.
Not so much of a comment on Coach Stallings. Sure. And also, they had this guy named Brett Favre on the team. and that was a little bit of a problem too. I had the unfortunate. I coached at East Carolina, and Brett beat me his freshman year. And then I went down to Southern Miss and won about 20 games in 2 years with Brett. And then I left, and the first game I coached after leaving, Brett came to play us and beat us again. So I figured out after 4 years it's best to be on Brett's team and not on the other side of the field.
Well, I guess we all hoped he wasn't going to get over that wreck. But anyway, I mentioned that Curly was speaking at a Tighter Insider meeting the week before, and I reminded him of what you said, and he took great pride in that. He said, I always had my guys in condition. I worked them hard, and I like that.
Hey, great stuff, Mike. We got to run, man. Good to hear from you.
I want to make one other comment.
All right, quickly.
Quick. Just one other thing that Coach Oliver told us in one of those meetings. He gave you quite a compliment. He said that you, as far as he was concerned, were better than him at actually anticipating what the offense was going to do and getting in the right place. So I just want to tell you that.
Well, I don't know. I appreciate that coming from him. I value that greatly, but I learned probably as much defense as I know, but 90% of it from Bill Oliver.
Thank you, Mike.
All righty.
Good to hear from you. All right, Coach. Sorry about the problems this morning. It's my fault. But quick thought on Alabama and Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss, 35-point underdog. The game ended on the goal line against Cal. They got two high-profile coordinators. I think Mike McIntyre's made that defense better. Rich Rodriguez, the quarterback situation with Matt Corral. They may have to go with the freshman Plumlee. Any shot for Ole Miss here to keep this game competitive into the second half?
No. I mean, if you come in as Ole Miss, you want to improve, you want to be competitive, you want to try to find some more things to build on. I think they've done better this year than people expected, but they just got to try to come out of this game with a positive feeling. Alabama, you want to find out what your team leadership's about. Do I come out and play really well against a team that can't beat us, or do we come out and make mistakes and not get better? So probably for both teams, it's about getting better because we know who's going to win the ball game.
And a quick thought on Mississippi State at Auburn. I mean, I'm really impressed with Auburn. Mississippi State had a nice win against Kentucky. This is one of those games. I mean, I like Auburn here, but Mississippi State kind of coming in under the radar a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if this one's competitive into the fourth quarter. Would you?
Could be, because Auburn right now is not able to separate from people, but they're winning games in a manner that they're not going to have a bad hair day. They're not dependent upon big plays. They're not dependent upon things, high execution like they used to. They're really winning on defense. They're taking care of the football. If they do that, they're going to beat Mississippi State. Now, if somehow the turnover bug gets them, State's capable, I think, of playing with them. But I think it's at Auburn. And I just don't see Mississippi State. They had a good, solid win over Kentucky last week, but they've not played this season. They don't look like, to me, they're ready to match up with Auburn.
Coach, great stuff as always. Again, I'm sorry we kept cutting you off, but we got through it, and maybe next week it'll run smoother. Thanks a lot.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gary.
All right, 9:57.